We are live. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Something just occurred to me. How old are you?
I'm 39, not knocking
Okay.
on the doorstep of 40.
So you are on the borderline of really rickety backup quarterback age. You're old, not Flacco old, but old for a really rickety backup quarterback.
I'm in that like Andy Dalton, Carson Wentz bracket
Yeah,
of age.
hard.
I can still sling it. You know, my daughter had a cheerleading game the other night, and these kids were throwing the ball back and forth across the sidelines, and it rolled up to my foot. And I looked at the one dude. He wanted the ball. I
Mhm.
said, "No, man, where's your boy?" And he pointed down to where he was, and I rifled the spiral. Had to be 30-ish yards downfield, 35 on a dime, and I'm like, ah, this old man can still do it a little bit.
So it didn't pop out like it would from Andy Dalton, for example. It wouldn't pop up in the air. You're in the Case Keenum area. You're in Case Keenum. Like we wouldn't necessarily start you, but like to be the mentor on the bench. That's good because the Vikings may need you.
The Vikings may need me. And Andy Dalton, as I said on social media on Sunday, he was like the loosest slot machine that you'd find in an old Vegas casino off the strip. Just the ball was
Yeah,
just flying out of his hands in the
right.
wrong direction. We'll get into all of that and a whole lot more. We have a big show on tap with the deadline approaching. But before we do, a little bit of housekeeping for you. If you enjoy Mike's personality, the ability to blend seamlessly the best superhero movie analogies with deep dive analytics into the biggest storylines across the NFL with tape dives. The Caleb Williams piece was terrific last week. Subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. You can read Mike tenure there. Subscribe to the Between the Hashmarks podcast on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review and rating. We'll read those reviews on the show live here to you. They really do help grow the show. And if you enjoy my reporting and my analysis and my writing, subscribe to Between the Hashmarks on Substack as well. Mike, let's just dive right into it here because just before we went on the air, Adam Schefter reports, quote, the Vikings are looking to add a veteran quarterback to the roster after Carson Wentz's season-ending injury. They only have J.J. McCarthy and rookie Max Brosner on their active roster. Interesting.
Yeah.
The spidey senses tingling a bit here on a couple fronts, but first glance, what's your take here?
It's layered because we have to sort of backtrack that Carson Wentz played that game with like a torn everything. And McCarthy was not activated. He was the emergency quarterback. So Brosner would have been the backup. Yet they kept throwing Wentz out there in that game, which was not competitive in the fourth quarter.
No, and the offensive line was the reason why it wasn't. And whatever wasn't broken and torn up on Carson Wentz was by the end of the game. Yesterday, after the report came out that Carson Wentz was going to undergo season-ending surgery, an NFL scout texted me out of the blue as a joke, quote, he should sue for unsafe work conditions for being in that game. His career might be over, unquote.
Wow.
And it just feel like maybe it's the end of the Carson Wentz experience. But, you know, the fact that we've heard these whispers, or at least I don't know if you have, but I've heard these whispers that this J.J. McCarthy injury is actually running cover for a soft benching by Kevin O'Connell. I think that's as much the reasoning for going shopping for veteran quarterback help today as it is adding to a quarterback room that has Max Brosmer there. You don't really need three. You don't need three. You can get by with 2 quarterbacks and somebody on your practice squad. You don't need 3. But the fact that they're going shopping, it's a little bit indicative of maybe they don't love, maybe they're more in like than in love with J.J. McCarthy.
Right. I heard the soft benching thing from all sorts of, it's really out there. That's what it looks like. And you're right. When we say soft benching, I mean, oh, he's still hurt. We're giving the extra week. And what you're really doing is saying, well, what can Carson Wentz really possibly potentially bring us? Which is when he was already hurt and he was getting more and more hurt, really kind of underscores the fact that if McCarthy was the guy, they'd have put him back out there. If they thought he was, Caleb Williams would have been put back out there. You know, Caleb Williams ain't great shakes. You know, he's not, he ain't Drake May. You know, he'd be pushed back out there quickly. McCarthy wasn't. Now you're in the situation where McCarthy's ready to come back. Well, one logic here is that, well, either McCarthy is able to play or the season's over when you're the 3 and 4 Vikings. If the season's over, you have Brosner out there. I don't know what we're talking about in terms of a veteran quarterback. Are we talking about going out and trying to trade for Well, all of the veteran backups are busy right now, aren't they?
They are maybe Jameis. Maybe
Jameis.
you call the Giants for Jameis Winston, who's on a 2-year deal. So you could carbon copy the Giants blueprint of dropping Jameis into the Kevin O'Connell quarterback cocoon to serve as an emergency quarterback alongside J.J. McCarthy the rest of this year, play if necessary. And if you decide that you're just done with J.J. McCarthy and you can somehow do better, he could be the mentor to the incoming rookie like the Giants planned for him to be for Jackson Dart.
Right, because you can understand their idea of having some mentorship there. But Jameis, if you start like Cooper Rush, I guess is available because he's already flunked out his job. By the way, I love how we're the Kevin O'Connell quarterback cocoon. Well, J.J. McCarthy isn't getting the job, but he's the guy. He's the actual thing. He's not the, well, I put some spit polish on Sam Darnold and pushed him out. He's the one person you're supposed to fix. Yes, injuries are a big part of this. But if that's what we're really talking about here, then there is no cocoon. There's just a loose association of quarterbacks that did pretty well because they got there and Justin Jefferson and these other guys were there. So the layers of this are fascinating. And I was talking to Aaron Schatz yesterday on the other podcast. It's an existential crisis right now for the Vikings. Okay. Because McCarthy has played 2 games, did not play particularly well in those 2 games. Had this injury that was a 4 to 6 week injury, lasted 6 3/4 weeks. Now he's kind of back by default. They have this urge to bring in another quarterback that we're hearing about, and we might see some kind of trade rather than just slopping out and finding Ryan Tannehill, or I don't know who's sitting out there that you just grab off the street.
Matt Ryan coming off the CBS desk. You go get Matt Ryan, but drag him from Manhattan, Upper Manhattan.
There was last year, Matt Ryan was doing a game. He was on the sidelines joking around at halftime. And one of the old defensive players, I don't know who it was, like Peanut Tillman or whoever, comes up behind him and hugs him without warning. And the wince on Ryan's face suggested that every rib has been perma-shattered. Like, I'm standing here in a suit and somebody hugs me without warning and I look like death warmed over. Hey, Gardner Minshew, he might be out there. There's another guy. Where is he? Is he in? I've lost track of him. Is he in Raiders country? Where?
I think he's in Raiders. That could be the spot. Philip Johnson checks in. Keep Jameis Winston out of this conversation. Send Russell Wilson to the Vikings. Maybe you get him for a 7th round pick. You throw it up, and Justin Jefferson's down there somewhere. You can play that kind of ball for the next 6 or 7 weeks. But I do think that if we peel back this onion one final layer, this whole thing, this whole J.J. McCarthy experiment just screams to me the hubris of Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings franchise. When you had a gift horse in Sam Darnold who led you to the postseason a year ago, the wheels came off by the end, right? The wheels came off with the pressure. He was seeing ghosts again with pressure that was not there, pressure perceived as pressure achieved, as we saw from the playoff loss in the opening round of the postseason. You had Daniel Jones in the building, and we saw what Daniel Jones has become behind a competent offensive line with a slew of weapons, which the Vikings seem to have, and a quarterback whisperer as a head coach, who we've all viewed Kevin O'Connell to be for varying degrees of rightfully and deservingly so over the last decade or so, whatever the case may be. You let those 2 veterans walk out of the building because you believe you can take a quarterback from a run-oriented system at the University of Michigan, unlock his potential because you have J.J. Addison, because you have Justin Jefferson, because you're Kevin O'Connell, and it just seems like it's blown up in their face. The injuries are one thing, but when you let both Darnold and Jones walk out of the building, I feel like this is kind of your comeuppance for that if you aren't necessarily the elite quarterback developer and whisperer that you've claimed to be.
There's layers to that, and you're right. One thing is, you remember when the Eagles kept Nick Foles, when Carson Wentz was the returning healthy superstar? They came up with a compensation package that made sense for Nick Foles, even though there were other suitors out there. Eventually, the Jaguars would throw a ton of money at him. You could go to a Sam Darnold and be like, okay, 2 years, I don't know, $68 million with a option, whatever. You could throw something out there, 1 year, 2nd year option. There were ways of doing that. They chose not to do it. Okay. I'm going to give you something else. Okay. We talked about McCarthy. He's at this weird crossroads. 1st round pick, J.J. McCarthy, 2024. Their other 1st round pick, Dallas Turner. He's terrible. He's a walking penalty. they're struggling. Their defense is not as good as it should be. They need him to take a bigger role because some of their pass rushers have been hurt. He hasn't stepped up. The year before, 2023, okay, Jordan Addison, that guy can play. There's been suspensions and injuries. Their third-round pick, Mekhi Blackman, already gone.
Gone.
Already gone. 2022, first round, Lewis Seen, gone. Second round, Andrew Bruce, gone. Third round, Ed Ingram.
Forget Andrew Bluth. Andrew who?
Andrew Bluth. Andrew Bluth. He's like Job and Buster's brother. Ed Ingram, I think he's with the Texans now. Gone. This front office, I love Kwesi. He seemed like somebody I was going to really get behind. They have not drafted even remotely well in early rounds. They've done good at like undrafted free agents. They've kind of found guys on that end. Their draft classes have been weak. McCarthy could be like the poster bearer for that issue.
It could be the fireable offense if it doesn't work out. And we can talk all we want about Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, and I think rightfully so based on what Darnold is doing in Seattle, and obviously Jones leading the most prolific offense in the sport right now in Indianapolis. But the reality is we don't know. We don't know if Darnold is going to shrink to the moment as he did a year ago. We don't know that Jones is going to be able to keep up this 15 touchdown, 3 interception pace that he seems to be on. But it just seems like the gamble was too big. Letting those two guys walk out of the building after you were around them. You had the ability to see them in practice, see them in meetings, and you still decided that J.J. McCarthy, there's no shame in trading a first-round pick who 31 other franchises view as a lottery ticket because Daniel Jones works out or because Sam Darnold works out. It blows up in your face when those guys go on to have MVP caliber seasons the following year and you drafted a bust.
Right. And we're past the point that, look, Sam Darnold, I think we did this last week. Sam Darnold in the first round of the playoffs threw an interception. See, we told you, dude, you guys are 5-12. You're 5-12. Yeah, you did not show us anything there. You picked the greater of two evils, so to speak.
No doubt. And let's just switch gears a little bit to a team that is suddenly firing on all cylinders after Monday night's game. The Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. And talking to people, it's amazing what happens when you have all of your weapons. All of a sudden, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes again. Rashee Rice comes back. He's 9 for 9, 93 yards and a touchdown last night. He has 135 and 3 scores over the last 2 games. Travis Kelce, a couple of touchdowns last night, just seems to find his way into the open space. Is there anything more to say than Kansas City is, regardless of record, one of the teams to beat on that side of the bracket?
They're one of the teams to beat. They are the team to beat, or they and the Bills are the teams to beat. With all due respect to the Colts, that's why we call them the team to beat. You have to go and beat them for us to take you seriously. In a big game, we hear you, Patriots fans, in a big game. Almost nothing to add to that. The Commanders, it was interesting because they were, I would say they were outplaying the Chiefs in the first quarter, maybe midway through the first half. A couple interceptions on defense. They marched down the field, and Debo shot puts an interception to defend the very first drive. Where are they at this point? I mean, I don't know. Is it? Can we? I mean, obviously, it's a Jaden Daniels injury exacerbated fall, but are we writing off the Commanders at this point?
I don't know if I'm ready to completely write them off, but we're going to know by Thanksgiving weekend, the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, because here's the schedule.
Okay.
You have the Seahawks at home, the Lions at home, you get the mini bye against the Dolphins, and then you have the Broncos. So if you don't, you're only 3-5 right now. And if you look at the rest of the NFC and how dominant the NFC North has been, you have 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 teams in the mix out of the NFC West. The only real path at this point for the Commanders to the postseason is winning the wild card. If you don't go 3-1 over that stretch, I think you stick a fork in them, right?
And you name those teams. Those are better teams. And the thing is, I think if you put a healthy Jaden Daniels in, the teams you named are better teams. Commanders' defense isn't great. I haven't seen the playmaker core hasn't developed in the way that we thought it was. Part of that was injuries along the way. But I don't look at that team and say, oh, yeah, a healthy Daniels and everything, straight up, they'll beat the Seahawks. They don't look like that. So, to say nothing of a team like the Lions.
Right, and the Lions might be the best team in football, and
right.
You know they get them 2 weeks after their bye. So
right.
I mean, it's just one of those things where it's bad timing, and they seem angry ever since losing that Week 1 game. Like they've kind of gone on this personal revenge tour for being written off too early.
Right.
But yeah, I think the Commanders are a mess, and if you stay in the NFC East, the Eagles get a blowout win over the Giants, and they do it without AJ Brown.
Yes.
I think we need to revisit the wide receiver con scale that I struggled with a few weeks
Yes.
ago.
Yes.
Where are you now after the AJ Brown hamstring? And there's some whispers on social media that Brown's gone in and deleted early in the bye week some like complimentary posts about the Eagles. I mean, I hate reading this deep into things, but fans are obsessed with this stuff. Apparently, AJ Brown is deleting complimentary things that he said about
You,
Philly.
you,
What is happening here?
you're forced to pay attention to it because the 28-year-old adult is actually doing this. Doing stuff that if I heard that there was a fight in the eighth grade cafeteria over a girl or something like that, and they were all taking stuff off of their whatever young people use. I mean, whatever it's called. Don't even tell me. I don't want to know. Whatever social media they use, they're deleting stuff off of Snapchat or whatever. That's what. So you have to pay attention because he's taking the time to do it, which means he's upset on that level. He's injured right now. For a big game. And what are you hearing?
Yeah, I've been reluctant to like ask around much on this because the last time I had an agent come back or a source come back and tell me it's diva receiver wants the ball more antics is what I was told
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, but that was still a couple of weeks ago. I think the extent to what I'm hearing is it would cost $45 million in dead money to trade him. Right,
Yeah.
it triggers a
Yeah.
$45 million dead money charge. That seems prohibitive. And Jeffrey Lurie at the owners' meetings in Manhattan last week told Diana Rossini of The Athletic that the Eagles, they're going to do what's best for the Eagles and for the roster and for the team moving forward.
Right.
I don't believe that trading away A.J. Brown, your best receiver, your most prolific and important offensive weapon, makes the Eagles better. But the flip side of that coin is if it becomes untenable and it's beyond just a hamstring injury and we go to wide receiver con 2 in
Mhm.
terms of the worry meter, then does it become the best thing to move on if you're getting a draft pick or a young receiver and Saquon Barkley's running wild because you figured out your offensive line scheme to free him up a little more and Devontae Smith is being productive? At what point do you draw the line in the sand? Because I don't think he's getting moved. I wouldn't expect the Eagles to
Yeah.
actively shop him. But at some point, you have to wonder if there's a breaking point for both sides.
I think there is. I don't know if we're there, but there are things that I believe are bad for the team that still happen all the time, or that become these necessary steps. So you look at anything from an analytical standpoint, on-field standpoint. Team needs AJ Brown. Figure this out, and yet this sort of rolling controversy. On the one hand, it got better. He got some big plays against the Vikings. Then a week later, he's got a hamstring injury. It looks like now he's got to miss this game. There's like this weird quiet. Rossini's also talking about how the Eagles would definitely listen to a blockbuster. I don't know if the blockbuster will be out there because you're right. With the dead hit, you'd be going to this other team. You say, well, we have to take this dead hit, but you've got to eat the salary. Or maybe you create some kind of sign and trade situation on that part. We need more. We need more to absorb this. How we can exact a lot of more from people, but there's a limit. But it's not a lot of times with these things. It's just not happening. It's gobble gobble. I don't think this is total gobble gobble.
The team that jumps out to me, if this is more than just an annoyance and a superstar diva wide receiver blowing off steam, is the New England Patriots because they're all in on Drake May. You go back to Vrabel. You kind of I don't get the sense it was Vrabel who traded AJ Brown. I don't get this. I got the sense that came from you. Think it was Vrabel? You think he was?
I think it was very knee jerk, fast. You want money now. It might have been nobody was actually looking at the ledger and looking to solve problems, but it happened very quickly. It seemed like it was a Huffy type of thing. I think Vrabel's fingerprints were on that. But go on. That's
$54 million in cap space. You're relying on Keyshawn Bott and Stephon Diggs as your top two wide receivers with Drake May off to this torrid pace, and you're leading the way in the AFC East. $54.3 million in cap space this year. They have the money to make it work financially. Yeah. But if the feelings are too hurt then
Yeah.
I don't think it happens. But if there's a financial apology with a couple extra zeros, and if AJ Brown decides that he can't stand the Eagles so terribly that he wants to move on and go elsewhere, maybe he buries his half of the hatchet. But outside of that, the Eagles are likely not trading him within the NFC. So you're looking at a cap space situation for a contender. You're down to Jacksonville at $12 million, and they're looking to move up Brian Thomas. Maybe it's a player for player swap, but I don't see the financials working there.
Oh God, the Eagles with Brian Thomas bringing him in, the 2 drop passes, and Jalen Hurts never looks again. Now, picture. I got an image for you of the Patriots receiver corps. So picture a boat out at sea. Stephon Diggs is the captain, with his
with his crew,
with Ginger and Marianne as his crew, etc. Sitting and relaxing, reading a book, reading Dostoevsky, AJ Brown. And then snorkeling around, looking at the fishies, Mac Hollins. The NFL's biggest aquarium fish guy, the James Cameron of the NFL, Mac Hollins, is swimming around happily, ignoring Ginger and Marianne and everything like that because he wants to go look at the pretty colored fishies. It works. There's chemistry there, right? That's chemistry.
Pretty as good as you're going to get. As good a chemistry as you're going to get.
And then when it's time for them to weigh anchor, Ramondre Stevenson picks up the anchor and drops it. And that's the end. That's the end of my saga. Drake May flies in, lifts the whole boat up, takes it to the shore, puts it down like Superman. The end.
Philip Johnson checks in. Do you think the Eagles' lack of productivity, meaning Saquon's yard per rush and A.J. Brown's targets, is due to Kevin Patullo's first year as OC and some growing pains? Your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I only started loving what Patullo was doing when I saw the 6th offensive lineman and all that stuff going on last week. Like, I understand what they're doing here, and I'm kind of enjoying this. I haven't been impressed so far. What happens when a team keeps going 3 and out? It's 3 and outs lead to more 3 and outs, and they lead to, why hasn't this guy gotten the ball yet? Why hasn't this guy got going? It's because nothing has gotten going because it's 3 and out. And then, of course, you do get like some splash plays. Oh, we got a 50-yard touchdown. But there's still all these 3 and outs. They haven't had the ball enough for some of these things to get going, and it's starting to come around. So that might be a cause for hope.
Yeah, and I talked to Brian Baldinger about this on Sunday night. You know, what sparked the breakout from Saquon? Because that was really the first game where he looked like Saquon Barkley. We've spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about whether the explosiveness was gone, whether it was the wear and tear from the 2,000-yard season last year. Is it time to look at, splitting the carries and keeping him fresh and all those things? But it turns out for the first time, according to Baldinger this season, they ran a pin and pull where you had 2 linemen pulling at the same time. And the way Baldinger summed it up was, the explosiveness and the speed didn't change. He just got bigger holes today. And if you're making those sort of adjustments and you can spring him with that offensive line, kind of changing your blocking scheme and the way you're doing things, maybe Saquon Barkley becomes the focal point again, and you kind of write off the first half of the year as, trying to figure out what the 2025 version of this offense and what the 2025 version of Saquon Barkley is and is going to be. And if that's the case, Philly's as dangerous as anybody.
That's it. And you're right. It's like Saquon looks different because the offensive line, the blocking in general, including the tight ends and all, looked different last week against a good defensive front. The Giants have a good defensive front. Yeah.
They really do. And just turning the page a little bit to the trade deadline, which is coming up on November 4th, I wrote in the column as the lead. I spoke to a general manager late last week, and he told me, quote, it's quiet, unusually quiet, unquote. So reading between those lines and just kind of watching everything play out this weekend, Mike, it seems like the fact that there's 18 teams that are 500 or better, and you have a few more teams that are within 1 game of the wild card either way on both sides of the bracket. My theory is I think we'll eventually get a more active trade deadline, but it really feels like there are so few sellers because there's so few teams out of the mix that are willing to just wave the white flag and surrender. And the teams that are contending, they don't necessarily want to be the team that gets fleeced.
Right. Right. And you look at the teams at the bottom, we did see the Titans, McCreary, they trade a guy to the Rams. So that took the Rams off the cornerback market. you look at the Titans, and it's like, well, who can they move? There's not a lot of guys to move at these bottom rung teams. I think the Dolphins have some veterans that you could move around. You look at a team like the Saints. I've heard things about Alante Taylor being on the market, Rashid Shaheed being on the market, so they might have some assets there. It's not like the Browns aren't exactly a shopper's paradise. They already moved a couple guys right early in the season, and you can't move Myles Garrett. It's like, oh well, it's all undrafted rookies. There's no there. There's nobody you can say, oh, grab this guy. He's going to help a contender right away, and that's probably contributing to it. You said though you did get a couple of nibbles, right?
Yeah, the one name that I heard today, asking around with a couple agents, just what they're hearing in their conversations with teams, Jacoby Myers' name
Ooh.
came up from two different agents who mentioned that he could be on the move. One said that a trade there could be really possible. Myers requested a trade from the Raiders back in the summertime. So far, there's no movement. You just start to connect the dots a little bit. Wide receiver needy teams. The Steelers need to get a wide receiver. Let me scream into the megaphone. Hey, Pittsburgh, go get a receiver. It has to happen. If you're going to make good on this Aaron Rodgers rental, you need to go get help there, because other than DK Metcalf, it's just not enough. It's just not working. The Panthers, if you're anywhere serious about trying to win this year and make the postseason, maybe Carolina makes some sense to flip a draft pick to the Vegas Raiders. And the 49ers, if you think that you're never going to get Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall all on the field all at once together for even a play or two, the Niners make some sense for Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, I'm just looking, and he was inactive last week. The last 3 games, 4 catches each game for 30, 32, 39. They've got him in this little goofy role. Probably it's just like catching underneath passes or quick screens or whatever.
That's what you get for requesting a trade. You request a trade, you get sent to, you're running the bottom rung of the route tree.
And it seems like Vegas really operates that way. There's like all kind of doghouse stuff going on there. A lot of and they brought in Tyler Lockett. We're bringing in all of Pete Carroll's binkies. We're bringing all Brady's binkies who might be left over to the Buccaneers. Buccaneers don't get rid of anybody, but if they got rid of somebody, they wound up on the Raiders along the way. So Myers could be on the move. I like him as somebody who can come in. He's generally been a good ace in the locker room. Not somebody who's going to come in and be weird. I don't know how helpful he is. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think he helps the Steelers. I'm going to tell you right now, the unpopular take is I don't think the Steelers need a receiver. The Steelers are out there going 2 and 3 tight ends and using offensive linemen as tight ends for a reason, because they're just terrified of Aaron Rodgers getting hurt, getting hit. Rodgers does not want to get hit. He gets the ball out of there so darn quickly. Unless you're bringing in the biggest yak producer, like a Tyreek, like, here, get it, go. Any of these other guys, you know what Jacoby Myers will give the Steelers? He'd give them 4 catches for 32 yards, which is what he's given the Raiders. But I like Myers as a useful piece.
For sure. And I just don't know who the other receivers are on the market. Brian Thomas's name has been floated in a couple conversations. I saw his name reported. Jacoby Myers averaging 11.3 yards per reception, average depth target only 9.9 yards. So he's not a field stretcher. He could be that quick out type of guy, but you're just likely to get thrown into a stretcher by an Aaron Rodgers hospital ball as you are to be after the catch machine in that system.
Yeah, he had Myers had a 45-yard catch against the Commanders, but his last 3 games, again, 10, 16, and 16 are the highest. He's a piece. He is a good complementary piece. So if, like, you mentioned the 49ers, we are injury ravaged. We need a guy who shows up, hustles, can move the chains a couple of times. That would be somebody. And again, I've heard Rashid Shaheed's name. That's your stretcher.
Yes.
If I'm the Bills, and I need the force multiplier. What do we really need? We've got everything. Somebody goes super fast in the straight line and can catch a 90 zillion yard pass. That is literally Rashid Shaheed's one trick. Go get it. The Saints have got to be motivated at this point to be like, give us some draft picks, please. Give us anything.
They benched Spencer Rattler for good. He's done for the rest of the year. So yeah, go get a draft pick to either bolster your chances of trading up to number 1 overall, or get a 2nd or 3rd round pick to package to move up and get a blue chip player to put around your young quarterback. Niraj on the go checks in. Maybe the Bucs could use Jacoby Myers. They have so many other wide receiver injuries. The problem with that theory is they have such a next man up mentality that's how they operate in that building. And Taz Johnson has stepped up.
Yeah.
Kalen Johnson has stepped up. I think they're probably 2 weeks away, maybe from getting McMillan back. It just seems Jalen McMillan back on the field. It seems like they have the depth. But if you're looking to just go over the top, I think Tampa makes a little bit of sense there. But I'm kind of with you here, Mike, that Rashid Shaheed in Buffalo would maximize Josh Allen,
Yeah.
and you're gonna still bludgeon teams over the head with James Cook as they did in Carolina the other day. That extra space that you have to kind of back off your safeties a little bit to take away the deep threat, that opens the running game up even more, which is how they want to operate when they're at their best.
And he's a big time return man who can add that element to things. One thing about the Bucs, Sterling Shepard is pretty similar to Jacoby Myers. Myers might be a little more versatile because Shepard, you got to kind of slot him, especially at this point in his career. But they do duplicate services. It comes down to like who's going to be healthy at what time of all the guys who are hurt. Ibuka's back, so that's one mitigated fear for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the running back market is interesting. I think the team that should be at the top of the running back market, shopping the most aggressively, is one of the teams we started talking about at the top of the show, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. They have everything. They have the receivers. Patrick Mahomes is the most clutch quarterback walking the planet at this moment in time. Go maximize it. Go get a running game. Because if there's one thing the Chiefs have struggled with through this entire dynasty is having that dominant ground attack. You saw Pacheco get banged up on Monday night. Go get a Breece Hall from the Jets because, you look at the Jets, they got Isaiah Davis some run. He's a guy in that building I know they really like because he's not only a running back, but he's a threat catching the ball out of the backfield. The number 2 running back, Braylon Allen, is banged up a little bit, but I think the Jets are in that situation where they want draft picks, they want assets. Breece Hall's probably the most attractive running back on the market. If I'm Kansas City, I'm at least gauging the market. I'm at least taking the temperature there.
If I'm Aaron Glenn and you trade Breece Hall after a 200-yard game, I just drive into the Hudson River. I just drive into the Raritan because they're dead up in Florham Park. But and if I'm Sauce Gardner and I Garrett Wilson, I see Breece Hall just left after that performance. Like, I think we'll stay injured for all of eternity right now and just collect your money. Thank you, Woody Johnson. I understand it, but I can't imagine them moving it right now. The Chiefs are going to Chiefs. They're not going to go out there and do something big for a running back. I say it. Kareem Hunt, he had 9 for 40 yesterday. They like Brashard Smith, although he was not very much of a factor. Something they could use. I just don't see them running out and getting it.
Do you think Alvin Kamara is on the market? Because you've heard his name bandied about. How much of this is people just making lists? How much of it is informed speculation? But we talked about which teams are you calling, which teams are sellers. If it weren't for the Dolphins beating Atlanta on Sunday, I'd say the Dolphins are completely open for business, and they might still be. But the Saints are one of those few teams where you can go to and start kind of like mulling through things like you are at a yard sale, picking out the card binder, looking for the Michael Jordan rookie card that Mob left in there for 50 cents.
I don't have the Saints cap situation open to look at what their cap is.
It's probably terrible. It's probably atrocious.
Right. My computer could actually short out if I try to do this. We can talk about the Eagles. Oh, the $40 million for AJ Brown would hurt them. It would hurt them, but they could work on it. The Saints, if they have too many cap hits in the future, can't field a roster. Here's Kamara. Last 3 weeks against New England, 10 carries for 31 yards. Against the Bears, 11 carries for 28 yards. Against the Buccaneers, 6 carries for 21 yards. And this is a team that lost Kendre Miller to an injury a couple weeks ago, so they needed more Kamara. I'm sure they'd move Kamara for who, to what end? What's he got? What's he really got?
Right.
He's averaging
how much juice is there?
Yeah, and everybody says, well, he's a receiver too. His receiving numbers have not been that good. I think he had 3 catches for 1 yard against the Bears. So we're not talking about somebody who's going out there and catching a million screen passes.
I feel like this is people making a list because dead money, $28.2 million if you trade Alvin Kamara this year. Cap savings, you're charging yourself $18.2 million against the cap this year.
For a 30-year-old running back. Anyway, by the way, I just want, because I have the screen up, I'm just looking at Taysom Hill, 11 rushes for 2 yards. Why are we still doing this? Why?
I thought that experiment would have crashed out the moment that Sean Payton, up and left town. Why is that still even part of the playbook?
Kellen Moore is looking at this, and part of it is because the guy's making $11 million. So you might as well see what you can do out of this. And you've got these young quarterbacks. It's like, oh, we'll run Wildcat once in a while. 11 carries, 2 yards.
The other market that I think is going to heat up and could be a domino effect where one trade happens and next thing you know, you're going to see the secondary moves follow shortly after is at edge rusher. And I wrote it in the column that, Brad Holmes in Detroit, John Lynch in San Francisco, Howie Roseman in Philly, they're all probably making the same phone calls that might or might not be being answered today. They might be being answered on November 2nd. But I thought that the outcomes on Sunday were kind of interesting there because does Cincinnati losing to the Jets change the calculus when it comes to Trey Hendrickson? I think it might. Arnold Ebiketie, I've been told up and down, has been available for weeks in Atlanta. Jermaine Johnson from the Jets, they'd probably love to get a draft pick there. But if you're the Bengals and you decide, hey, you know what? We were going to try to hang on with Joe Flacco until Joe Burrow got healthy and we were going to try to win enough games to be within striking distance. Well, you look up on October 28th and you look at the AFC playoff standings and the Cincinnati Bengals have not been eliminated because no one has, but they're in 10th place with a 7% chance of making the postseason, according to NFL media's playoff projections. So if you're the Eagles, if you're the Lions, if you're the 49ers, are you not burning down the phone lines to Duke Tobin trying to trade for Trey Hendrickson?
I think you're trying. One thing, he did have a minor injury last week, so there's probably some swirling about like what's really going on there. Because he got knocked out of that game in the fourth quarter or in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, all hell broke loose for that defense. You pick up the phone, you do it. You're trying to do business with the Bengals. They're obstinate. They do these things these weird ways. You talk about these guys like Ebiketie and Johnson. I like them because you're younger players. You're making smaller moves. Okay, so you say, for the price of a mid-round pick, you get a guy in his early 20s, mid-20s to bring in and put in your rotation. The Niners don't necessarily need a lot more salary and age. They need healthy humans, and that might be the way they go with that. Eagles, I say, I would put in the same boat there.
I think they're in the same boat because they're so desperate for pass rush help that they convinced Brandon Graham to come out of retirement after 9 months. And nothing against Brandon Graham. Great guy, locker room glue, very good player. Don't know how good at this stage of his career. If you can get even a rotational edge rusher to drop in there, I think it makes Vic Fangio's defense more dominant. But it just seems like that's the market where there are so many teams poking around that one trade happens, all of a sudden you're going to see teams kind of look at, Ebiketie got fetched for a fifth rounder. Can you give me a fourth for Jermaine Johnson? Hendrickson, can we get him for one first round pick instead of two? You're going to start to see things happen once that first trade goes down.
Bradley Chubb is somebody people might go in after in the Dolphins, et cetera. And it's the one position most teams look at and say, the edge rusher don't have to learn anything. Wide receivers, you're worried about chemistry and stuff like that, offensive linemen and all the cornerbacks who might cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. Get quarterback, eat quarterback. You can go in on the rotation. It's 3rd and 12. You know what to do, Trey Hendrickson. Go get him so you can make that instant impact. So that's why you see so much of it. I think we'll see something.
The one team that I think people should keep an eye on, though, is the Green Bay Packers, especially after winning in Pittsburgh the way that they won. You look at Tucker Kraft going off. You look at Micah Parsons wreaking havoc on 2 different series late in the fourth quarter to kind of put the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers to bed. But they have injuries up front along the offensive line. I didn't think they did a great job protecting Jordan Love throughout that game. Carrington Valentine had a couple really nice pass breakups, especially against DK Metcalf. But let's be real here. He's Carrington Valentine. Is he going to do that consistently?
And he might be their one. He might be their top guy. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If you're going up against Amon-Ra St. Brown or A.J. Brown in the postseason or Justin Jefferson in a game that you have to have late to lock down the number 1 and number 2 seed, I don't know that Carrington Valentine is the guy that I want, shadowing Justin Jefferson there. If I'm Brian Gutekunst, after going all in and making the move of the year, trading for Micah Parsons, it's bordering on negligent not to go make phone calls for offensive line help and a
Mhm.
starting caliber cornerback. I thought that the Roger McCreary trade was bad for the Eagles, losing out a corner to an NFC rival. You make the
Yeah.
same argument for the Packers, who I think have an even bigger needed corner than Philadelphia does, with less margin for error, given how dominant the NFC North is and how many really elite wide receivers are in that division.
I think that's a problem for the Packers. Offensive line, I'll say this, they've been rotating guys all year, and they've been rotating guys for years. They've got all these dudes off the bench. You come off like, oh, wait, you've started, 11 games the last 2 seasons and not gotten Jordan Love murdered. So I don't think on the offensive line they're going to do it. Cornerback's interesting. The Colts need a cornerback. The Colts, who are cruising right now, they had Xavier Howard retire. Charvarius Ward got smashed into another teammate in camp while they were watching Anthony Richardson put his eye out with the electric rifle. Sorry. What did he do? He snapped the band back in his whatever. The Colts need a cornerback, is what I'm saying, and there are a couple other teams on that list. Honestly, the Lions need one too.
Lions need edge. They need corner. They need depth because
Yeah.
you got to worry about preventing the kind of injury outburst that they saw last year that torpedoed their entire defense and their season.
Right. So Alontae Taylor, again, he's a guy who's out there, early round pick, runs around, usually gets the job done. Relatively speaking, for the Saints, is athletic. There's one. I don't know who else is out there. I saw Russell Douglas's name brought out there. Don't think people are trading for a guy who was on the street until like August 28th, and then the Dolphins grabbed him as an afterthought. I don't, if he's available for conditional 7th-round pick, then you grab him. But I don't know what's out there at cornerback that these teams can bring in and say, well, this is an upgrade off of somebody we had in camp with us that we can call off a practice squad.
And I like Rasul Douglas. I think he's a good player. He's mostly a slot.
Yeah.
You're kind of limiting yourself into how you can use him, whereas McCreary has experience playing both. And I like that addition for the Rams because you can play him in the slot, you can play him on the perimeter, matchup dependent. You can move a guy like I interviewed him on the show a few times. The safety, Lake. You can move Lake around a little bit to create some matchup problems there. Just a really interesting fit for the Rams, who I think upgraded their secondary and their squad. That if they don't give up a couple passes over their head against Philly and that blocked field goal, you're talking about them potentially being an undefeated one-loss type of team that can make some real noise.
Right. I also noticed the Bears have had a lot of injuries. They might be in the cornerback market as well. So you got a lot of buyers, potential buyers, not a lot of sellers. I saw Cam Taylor-Britt from the Bengals name come up if the Bengals are fire selling guys. It's hard to say because, like you said, one reason it's slow, a team like the Bengals might still be saying, we got to put a run together. We spent a lot of money this offseason, and we just got to win over the Steelers, and we still have a 7.8% chance. We can't just fire sale now. We just can't do it.
The debate has to be for Cincinnati. Is Trey Hendrickson on this defense enough to keep us in position to be in a position to make a run when Joe Burrow gets back in 3 weeks or whatever it's going to be, 4 weeks' time? Or is trading Trey Hendrickson for a first-round pick and a second-round pick that we can turn into 2 offensive linemen to try to prevent Joe Burrow from suffering a long-term injury like we've seen a few times now that have wrecked their seasons? Is he more valuable in the short term this year, or is it getting that draft capital? And I'm almost inclined, given the fact that they collapsed against the Jets, that the long-term view might be the right view there.
I think so. And I start to wonder not just what Duke Tobin and the Brown family thinks, but what Burrow, Chase, and Higgins think. They're all in this together for the long term. And you see Burrow, as he's rehabilitating, saying, look, we are getting ready for your return. Maybe you can sell him on that. I don't know how you sell the whole thing in the locker room. After everything we went through with Hendrickson in the entire spring and summer, turn around and say, oh, we got a first-round pick for him. Here we go. Zach Taylor, goodbye. Bye. It's a tricky political sell in the headquarters.
So you bring Burrow, you bring Chase, you bring Higgins. Taylor can wait in the car. You bring them to Skyline Chili, and you have a good old-fashioned chili summit, and you hammer this out. But what do you guys want? What preserves peace in the locker room? What's the vision here? Well, how should we approach this?
You like Cincinnati?
Hendrickson has a chance to go chase a ring. He might go chase a ring.
Oh, he won't be like, oh no, please don't send me to Detroit, heaven forbid. Do you like Cincinnati chili?
I'm not a big chili guy, but if there is
Okay.
chili that I probably like, is if you're going to slam the cheddar cheese on there, I'd probably be more inclined.
Okay. You do you. It's like we've ruined cinnamon toast and we've ruined chili and we've ruined spaghetti by piling them on top of each other. I've never understood that. You do you, Cincinnati. Wait.
One of the weirdest food delicacies in this country.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
A Frankenstein monster of food. You alluded to it, the fact that there's so many contenders that who knows who's going to be waving the white flag. I love this idea on the outline that we should play some NFL Jeopardy. Who
Yes.
are these teams and what are they? So I don't know if you want to start and serve one up, or if I should kick things off here and give you a team. Logistically, we should have figured this out beforehand. But how do we want to actually play this game?
I'm loading up the outline since I forgot what I wrote on it. I will tee you up. Okay. So I will be either Ken Jennings or, because I'm old and almost cadaverous, Alex Trebek, and I will tee you up with the question right now. Actually, in Jeopardy, you give. Never mind. Jeopardy. Who are the Cowboys?
I'm glad you asked, because I will be writing about the Cowboys
Oh,
this week, doing some legwork on the Cowboys and their defense. But what is, or who is, an NFC wildcard threat that would contend for the division championship if they only had a defense? They should probably go visit the Wizard of Oz and get a defense.
I like it. I like it. Somebody in my mailbag described them as simply an AEW entertainment property disguised as a sport. And
Sounds about right, based on how they
and
used AT&T Stadium in the summertime.
yes, and based on the last 30 years of their existence, where Jerry Jones is a Vince McMahon like character there, but that is it. So, and if we're thinking of this as the Tin Woodsman in search of a defense, or as AEW, I go back to expect the unexpected with this team, because that was absurd what we saw on Sunday.
Yeah.
But then they came off a previous week, and other than betting the over every single time, because they're clearing every single over, don't take anything for granted. We can all sort of have our yucks at the Cowboys. They can score 40 points against you at any time, and that makes them dangerous.
Go trade one of those ones that you got from the Packers for Trey Hendrickson. Fix that defense.
I love, again, we keep going back to, you know what? They need to figure out how to get a pass rusher. They need to get a pass rusher.
It's the joke. It's the joke that keeps on giving. And it's,
Yes.
as I was texting with somebody on Sunday, it's the ultimate irony that they finally get an offense that has all the weapons they need. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have George Pickens, you have Schoonamaker, you have a decent stable of running backs, you have Dak playing at an MVP level, and your defense is a total sieve. There's some cruel irony for Dallas and Jerry Jones that, had they just done nothing with Micah Parsons, just done nothing and forced him to play this year,
Right.
they might be the team that's 5-2 in the NFC East.
Right. The grimiest, crappiest move, like, we know you can't actually hold out, would have been better than what they did. Like the worst boss type of move. Also, Micah obviously would have improved things. They have problems secondary, problems at linebacker. They can't tackle. And look, I don't even know why we talk about Matt Eberflus like he's somebody who's ever accomplished anything in his life. I don't understand that, but like that defense is terrible. Let's move on. Who are the Steelers?
What is the clear-cut team to beat in the AFC North? And you look at their remaining schedule, 493 remaining strength of schedule is the winning percentage there. They're 20th in the NFL in terms of their remaining schedule, but it is the toughest among their division opponents. But I have a really hard time seeing any of those teams in the division knocking them off, barring some sort of Aaron Rodgers calamity. I think they're good enough to go 10-7. With Aaron Rodgers the way he's playing. I mean, not every team you're going to play is going to be as loaded as the Packers are. Not every team is going to be as motivated to rub your nose in it as Green Bay was for some reason. You wrote about the divorce that never ends. You led the column with it on Monday and walkthrough. They clearly wanted to send a message. But I look at the Steelers and it just feels like tried and true formula, played decent enough on defense, and they're going to find a way to win.
They're like 23rd on defense per DVOA. And Their offense is, I don't know how to describe the tomfoolery. This is now. I hesitate to use the word fraud because of what you said, what's going on in their division. But this is a team that if you tell me they're going to win the division at 8-1, I'll be like, yeah, sure, congratulations, another non-losing season. The team you have to worry about, the team that you usually were talking about, but you quietly overlooked, are the Baltimore Ravens, whose upcoming schedule includes the Miami Dolphins, the Minnesota Vikings with J.J. McCarthy or possibly Jameis Winston or possibly the ghost of Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals, who knows who's at quarterback by then, and then they're facing the Steelers late in the season. Lamar Jackson, I think, is actually back. I don't know. They said he was a full participant in practice. That means he was at least within 10 miles of the facility, right?
He was at least in the woods somewhere on the way to the facility, right? I mean, he was at least in the zip code compared to what they said last week.
Yeah, he was in that weird little woods behind the facility. That's a whole other story, but those are real. I think the Ravens could actually snipe this opportunity for the Steelers because I don't think the Steelers are any good.
I'm going to just say to the Substack AI machine, please don't clip this. Please don't clip what I'm about to say because it's going to make me a Hall of Fame candidate for Cold Takes Exposed. The Ravens are still dead. They're dead. They're dead. They're dead. They're dead. Okay. Because what you didn't mention is the fact that they still have to play the Packers. They still have to play the Patriots. So what this is going to come down to is a healthy Lamar Jackson making the difference to sweep the Steelers. They're going to have to beat the Steelers twice, right? That's you stack division wins that way. They're clearly the biggest hurdle within the division. The NFL media playoff standings give them a 57% chance to make the playoffs, which is seventh best odds on that side of the bracket. So I still think that they're dead because I think they've created a situation where they have next to no margin for error. But if Lamar Jackson plays at an MVP level and they do get in, give him the MVP and give me a brown jacket for this take.
While we're not clipping things, Ravens are going to kick the shit out of the Patriots. They're going to kick They're going to kick the living shit out of the Patriots. The reality check is going to be giant, like a novelty check, like the old Ed McMahon Publishers Clearinghouse check. Okay, so but we're going to learn more, and right now the Ravens are coming up on a Patriots-worthy schedule, so we'll see how that goes. But hey, I think we've covered. Now we had the Ravens on the outline.
Here's the problem with the Ravens.
Yeah.
Broderick Washington still on injured reserve. Nnamdi Madubuike out for the year. Tavarius Robinson on injured reserve. Bilal Cohen injured reserve. TJ Tampa questionable. Adarius Washington out. Disa Isaac injured reserve. Nate Wiggins is back, and that's fine. Yeah. It just seems like there's a lot of like Detroit Lions caliber injury issues going on here.
You
have to get back.
You name like 2.2 people that people actually care about on that list, by the way. Hamilton's off the list. Okay. Ricard is off the list. Mark Andrews isn't hurt anymore. We have to watch out for Ronnie Stanley. That's a big one. Again, we going to pretend we know what's going on with Lamar Jackson. I don't think it's that big an issue. And I think that the ones you mentioned, like Madubuike, obviously a big issue, they can overcome those because they've overcome those in years past. Those are just like the injury level injuries.
So we sit here on October 28th, and we're in the safe space, in the tree of trust. You think that the Ravens win the division?
I think the Ravens win the division.
Okay. All right.
The Steelers are breaking my brain with the way they had these handful of weird wins. And they have a Patriots win. That's good. The Patriots weren't really the Patriots yet in week 2. So.
For sure. Let's move ahead now to the circlet game. What do you got?
Yes. What did I put? Oh, by the way, I put a rule on that thing.
There's a rule, yes. So the rule is, for the circlet game, neither of us can pick the Bills versus Chiefs mega clash.
Yes, we all know that one's coming. We all know it's awesome. So I'm going to go with Vikings-Lions because I need to see J.J. McCarthy. I've been waiting for this McCarthy. Yeah, I saw him twice in like night games at the beginning of the season. He was very wobbly. Now we've had like 2 months where he's been hidden in the skunk works. I need to have a total vibe check on the Vikings organization with all the things that have been going on this week. I need to see it. This is the game they got to win. This is the game that matters. I don't think the Lions have anything to worry about right now, but I need to see what happens in this game. What do you got?
Will you get J.J. McCarthy, or are they going to jam a Max Brosner-sized peg into a J.J. McCarthy-sized hole and drive home this soft benching theory?
First of all, hashtag phrasing. Second of all, if so, I don't want to hear the word J.J. McCarthy again in my life.
Ever.
It is be so far beyond over if Max Brosner goes out there and we hear about some sort of little mini complication or, for the good of the long-term health of the organization. You'd be lying. Either you have given up on the kid or, and I hate to bring this up, the kid has given up on himself already. No. What do you got?
Kevin Langstaff, before we get to my circle game, I'm usually a Tanya stand, but he's crazy about them Ravens.
He's crazy about the Ravens?
You are. He's calling you crazy. He's saying you're crazy about the Ravens.
Blame Aaron Schatz. Blame Aaron Schatz. He's like in my ear with the DVOA ratings and the projections and all of that stuff. But it's the Steelers broke me. The fourth quarter on Sunday night broke me in terms of how bad that team looked. And it looked like, we've ran out of all of our goofy crap for Aaron Rodgers. We ran out of the goofy crap. We have to actually play football now. No more 58-yard field goals. We got all of them, and we can't. That's where I'm at. So just
all right. Circle a game for me. Colts Steelers. Not to bring more Pittsburgh into this conversation, but Tucker Kraft leads all tight ends and yards after the catch according to FTN Fantasy. Entered the other night at averaging 9.1 yards after the catch per reception. Had 131 of them against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know who's second in that category?
Who's that?
Tyler Warren from
Penn State University.
Yes, sir. They all go up against the Yak Prince, Tyler Warren. If Tucker Kraft is the Yak King, he burned that Steelers defense. Tyler Warren gets his crack at them. I want to see if the Steelers defense can rise to the occasion against the best team in football right now. I want to see if Daniel Jones can exploit that defense the way that Jordan Love did last week. I'm not going to say it would be a signature win because the Steelers defense has left a ton to be desired, but it would be a conference win against a playoff caliber opponent. It's two teams currently leading their division. To me, it's the second most fascinating game on the schedule.
It is a really good threat assessment for both of these teams because you get another hurdle that is not the Titans for the Colts to clear, and we get another look at a medium difficult to difficult or very difficult game for the Steelers. I am a little worried. I bollocksed that throw on the Tyler Warren. I want to redo that. So you do the Tyler Warren and throw to me, and let's see if we can get this right.
All right, Tyler Warren from?
We are.
Penn State.
See, that way you get to do the Penn State because I don't give a crap about Penn State.
Dude, they're gonna get a 60 burger hung on them in Columbus on Saturday. It's not gonna be pleasant. Maybe I'll go to a pumpkin patch.
You'll be hanging around the pumpkin patch with Linus, with your kids and Linus waiting for the great pumpkin instead of waiting for the 60 burger, the great Buckeye coming to get you.
Yeah, the Colts schedule, and they're steamrolling teams for rightfully so. But the win over Miami, Denver's a great win. Win over Tennessee, meh. Lost to the Rams. Win over the Raiders in blowout fashion. Win over the Cardinals in close fashion. Win over the Chargers, great win. Win over the Titans in blowout fashion. They're best point differential. They're creating takeaways. They're doing everything they need to do. They're checking boxes. How real are they?
This is the argument. I mean, obviously they're a playoff team because they're already there. They're already like 75% of the way there. You mentioned those teams. Your big wins are the Broncos leverage game, which is like, Chargers, that's a convincing win, although they had a bunch of injuries. And then you're like, and then you got the next biggest one is the Cardinals with Jacoby Brissett. We need to know. And you look at the second half of that schedule, we will know more. But we do learn a lot because, again, the Steelers, they broke me. They find ways to win these games. They trip up opponents like this. Okay, Rodgers is not complete chopped liver. TJ Watt and these other guys are out there. Tomlin manufactures these type of wins. Let's see if it happens on Sunday.
Yeah, they're playing on that municipal dog track of a golf course they call Acrisure Stadium's field.
Yeah.
It's outdoors, so maybe that slows them down a little bit. But Jonathan Taylor's awesome. Hey, what do we have coming up on the Two Deep Zone?
Mailbag, and there are so many questions. Guys, I'm going to be answering a lot of Eagles questions. Going to be talking about Colts skepticism, Patriot skepticism. I got some pushback from readers who think I might be a little down on these fraudulent teams that are utterly fraudulent and frauds. I don't know why people think I'm down on them. But anyway, so much to talk about. There's going to be 2 or 3 mailbags this week. What do you got coming up?
Wow, 2 or 3. Awesome. We're going to throw a 4th one onto that mailbag fire on Friday with the weekly mailbag from me.
Yeah.
Also working on a couple things, continuously working the phones, trying to come up with dribs and drabs of trade deadline speculation, trying to hear what we can hear. And I'm not sure if it'll be out by the end of this week, but definitely early next week. Something a little bit longer form on the Cowboys defense, trying to get to the root of the problem. Is it personnel? Is it Eberflus? Is it all of it? Talking to scouts, coaches, former players. Excited about that project, and it might be this week, might be early next.
Wonderful. Cowboys fans will love to hate it.
Yes. And everybody else will probably just love it. He's Mike Tanier. Follow him on Blue Sky at Mike Tanier. Make sure you subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. You have to check out the walkthrough every Monday. It's mandatory reading. I get it with my pumpkin cold brew on the nice chilly fall mornings, and sip the cold brew, read the walkthrough. You subscribe on the Apple Podcast Store to the Between the Hashmarks podcast. Check it out on my YouTube channel at Mount Lombardo 975. You can subscribe to Between the Hashmarks on Substack as well. We have over 50 people in the room. It was a lot of fun interacting with everybody today. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Mike, have a great week. We'll talk to you next week with some real trade deadline news to sink our teeth into.
It's the great Buckeye, Charlie Brown.